let me talk a little bit about Rea tonight. Rea has really become a good friend of mine, and if you haven't heard her speak or spent any time with her, you're really in for a treat. She is passionate about history, she's passionate about home education, she's passionate about children's literature, and it's very easy to catch that passion when you're with her. So you're just in for a treat. You're going to go home with a new, renewed energy on what you're doing at home, and actually really practical ideas as well. Rea is the wife of Russ. They've been married 29 years. They have 6 children. 4 grown children and 2 children here, and she's been homeschooling for 25 years. And so she brings a lot to the table. If that is not enough, she has her homeschooling experience was the impetus for her to develop and create 9 guides for learning history through literature. She's won awards for that, for those guides, and she also travels nationally to speak at homeschool conventions on children's literature and history. And so we get to benefit from having her right here in the community. She graduated summa cum laude with a BA in English from Simmons College and recently earned a master's degree in children's literature at the Center for the Study of Children's Literature in Boston. And there she was named a Virginia Avalon Scholar. So we just get to sit under her tonight. With her husband, she's brought back into print many classics work of children's literature. Their company, if you aren't aware, is called Beautiful Feet Books, right here in town. They offer a wonderful discount to all of us, and they're over kind of near the airport. They also have a website you can order from. And a lot of our literature, not all of it, but a lot of it is purchasable with Beautiful Feet Books. And all this, and they live in San Luis Obispo. About 2.5 years ago, they moved. Is that about? Is it 2.5?
Yeah, well, almost 3. Yeah.
Almost 3. They moved their business out here, and they have 2 children here at the school. One is a new intermediate student, and then one is almost done with us. So Tatiana's in her last year here, but she knows the school, she knows what we're about, she knows what we're trying to do together. And she served on our classical advisory board. If you didn't know we have that, we have a board that spurs us on in the area of classical education. She has served on that board along with Russ since the beginning. And she's been a part also of our curriculum planning and development in the areas of children's literature and history. So I'm going to be quiet now and be a parent and pass you on to Rea. Thanks, Rea.
Well, lest you think I'm smarter than I am, it took me 3.5 hours to do an algebra lesson with my daughter today. So I'm a little frazzled, but that's like normal for us. We're really bad at math in my house. We can pull off the history of literature pretty well, but oh, I need help. Maybe somebody could come to my house and teach my kids math, and I'll come to your house and teach my kids history. Let's see. I almost was tempted to take a little survey and have you all make a little secret ballot. And the first question was going to be, are you overwhelmed? But then I thought, ooh, I could really start a problem here if everybody answered yes, because that's sort of how I'm feeling. So I hope that, I was really overwhelmed the first month of school, and I hope that for you folks that sort of subsided a little bit, and you're kind of feeling like you're getting into a groove, and not too many nodding heads. Well, we're working on that part, so I want you to be encouraged, because what we really felt like last year was that academically we were really dropping the ball in some areas. And as you know, it's human nature tends to be, when we feel like we're really down on one thing, we sort of swing to the other side of the pendulum. And so I think we did that to sort of really start emphasizing the academics and really kind of raising the bar a little bit. And so if you were overwhelmed this first 4 or 5 weeks, you really aren't alone. I mean, most of us were feeling that way. And I'm hoping that once we start moving into some different literature that you'll feel like you're really sort of getting into the groove and things are coming a little bit easier. One of the reasons you probably felt overwhelmed if you had a lower intermediate child, like I do, was that Witch of Blackbird Pond was a very demanding book. And the vocabulary was just off the charts for a 3rd grader. So, and that was not intentional to drive you crazy, believe me. It was, those helps that were sent home for the intermediate students were mainly to give you an idea of the sort of stuff to look at and the sort of stuff to work with. But of course, we're always wanting you to adapt that to your students' level. So we hope that you feel the freedom to do that at all times. And if the teachers didn't feel like you felt that freedom, that would be discouraging to them, because this is a partnership, and you know your children best, and we want you to work with your child at their level. Now that doesn't mean you just don't do anything, of course, but it means that you don't demand 5th grade work from a 3rd grader, and you don't let your 5th grader get away with 3rd grade work. So I'm hoping that helps a little bit. Suzette?
Hope you don't mind. A quick question then. What's the best way for us to communicate the level we're teaching at that point to the teacher? Do we send an email? Do we send a note with the work? What do you think?
Well, I think if you're using your notebooks and working in your notebooks at your student's level, then your teacher should be seeing that in the classroom. And I'll put a Post-it note on it and just write a quick note. They're kind of overwhelmed with emails because they have so much email duty already. So I keep the emails to a minimum and just do a quick Post-it note on their notebook or their lesson that day. And that just takes care of it real quickly. And then if you need to talk to them after class, just take a minute. But please, as we're going through the material today, if you have a question, please raise your hand. This is supposed to be a discussion and really an interaction so that we can talk about the literature and get a grip more on what we're wanting to do. The main thing that the teachers wanted me to communicate to you was reading aloud. I hope that you're all reading aloud and not just handing the literature off. I was going to put that question on the survey, but then I thought, ooh, I could get in trouble for that one too. So I'm assuming that the majority of you are reading your books aloud. And if you're not, I just want to really encourage you to do that, because really the basis of a classical education is literature. It's literature, history, science, and math. And we want you interacting in all those ways with your students. Not only because the richness is all there, but also because when you're reading aloud to your children, you're just really building those bridges of communication, you're building emotional bridges, you're building cultural bridges, and you're building bridges of communication. And that's something that it really is a lifelong pattern. I mean, we have 4 adult children that we read to from the time they were born, and they're still great readers. They love to read. They're passionate about great books, and that's because they've been read to from the time they were, little bitty. And so I can't emphasize that enough. It really does reap very rich rewards in their long-term self-education. I mean, you probably know some of these statistics, but your average high school graduate in America never reads another book after they graduate from high school. I mean, it's just absolutely atrocious. And a lot of your college graduates, believe it or not, don't read. And I know this is true because, I work with college students and I have college-age students, and I talk to them about literature and I ask them what they're reading. And, you probably wouldn't be surprised how often they say, oh, I haven't read anything since, English 101. And that's really a tragedy. A reading people will, a people that stop reading will quickly become illiterate. So this, we really are swimming against the stream here. We're swimming against the cultural tide of really functional literacy in this country. And it's one of the reasons you're homeschooling. It's one of the reasons you're devoted to this method of education. So I just want to say, keep it up. Enjoy the literature. That's the main thing the teachers want you to know, is really enjoy the books. Don't get stressed out about whatever papers are being sent home with them. Enjoy the reading and really engage with your children about it. So in other words, when you come to something and it just strikes you, just stop and just say, what do you think about that? So I'm going to give you some examples of how to do that sort of thing. And hopefully, that'll sort of spur some questions and we can have some discussion.